Welcome back, everyone. Now it's time for the second round of panel discussions. Panel 2A will look at technology and human nature. And the topic of panel 2B is anxiety in international relations caused by the progress of science and technology. These two sessions will also take place simultaneously on Channel A and Channel B. Now, let me introduce the organizers of these sessions. Yasuda Koichi, professor in the Graduate School of Information Science and Technology at the University of Tokyo, and Suzuki Kazuto, professor in the Graduate School of Public Policy at the University of Tokyo. Great to have you both with us today. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Now, Professor Suzuki, can you give us a brief introduction of your session?
Right. When we talk about science and technology and the progress of it, people tend to have this sort of a positive image, but at the international relations, there is always difficulties because these technologies can be used for the military purpose as well. So our panel is going to discuss about how this nature of the technology to contribute to the anxiety among the states and among the people in the society about the threat of war and how to prevent the war.
Very important topic to maintain peace in the world.
Right.
Thank you very much. Now, Professor Suzuki will move to another room to prepare for his session. Thank you, Professor Suzuki. Please stand by. Now, Professor Hashida, what will be the main points of your discussion?
Yeah, our session will discuss how to control centralized AI or CAI. Many people have pointed out their dangers, and the kind of dangers they point out is those technologies might damage human dignity and freedom of choice and democracy. But the problem is it's perhaps impossible for the humanity to jointly control this risk because those technologies, centralized AI, would bring about a huge profit and power to the winners of this race of development and deployment of centralized AI. The situation is quite different from that of global warming and global nuclear war, where there is no winner. So we'd like to tackle and pursue the solution to this problem.
Another very important topic. Looking forward to it very much. And as to the members of this panel, we have received an unfortunate notice from Mr. Jack Attari. He will not be attending this session due to schedule changes on his side. We're very sorry, but we would like to inform you of this change in advance. Now, once again, to our viewers, please make sure to check the buttons for Channel A and Channel B on the left-hand side of your screen and click to switch over. Language option is also available between English and Japanese. So, are you ready? Let's begin.
Okay, welcome to our session on technology and human nature. First, let me introduce to you our moderator, Professor Osamu Sakura of the University of Tokyo.
Thank you, Hashida-san. Hello, my name is Osamu Sakura. My background is the earth science studies, and so I'm focusing on the relation with how the experts studies and how the public society accept and related modern technologies. This session is focusing on the technologies and the human natures, especially for the emerging technologies, artificial intelligence and AI robots. Historically, always the human beings had the both very positive, supportive attitudes to the modern technology, emerging technologies, and on the contrary, the very negative and the hostile technology. Such ambivalent is we can call the sort of the part of the human natures. Well, the very symbolic such images for the technologies would very often described in the novels or paintings or movies and so on. Can I have the first slide, please? Well, this is a very famous Frankenstein's creature or monsters. One of the typical example of the human beings is the anxiety for the modern technologies. Well, this creature, what you say, the eager to revenge to the creator, Dr. Frankenstein, and he's devastating his wife and his friends, and so on, so on. So the we always have such very horrible images for the modern technologies. Oh, well, the next slide, please. Well, this is completely the opposite side of the image. It's very positive and friendly images to the modern technologies. This is Doraemon, Japanese animations. This is robots from the 25th century or something in the futures, but they always help and support the Doraemon's human friends, Nobita, well-knowns. And its shape is very, what to say, the baby-like, very round face and a round mouth and a big head and very short legs and arms. Okay, so the next slide. This is another very friendly images of example of the very friendly images of the robot Astro Boy or Tetsuan Atom, the another famous Japanese animes. So these two ambivalence, the very friendly and very hostile images, we always have such images. So same to the artificial intelligence or modern robots and so on. Well, can I have the next slide? Well, the keyword of this session is personal AI, personalized AI, or PAI, as Hashida-san told. And the personal AI is a concept or the system in which each person, each citizen can manage his or her own informations, and the AI system will support these to say personalized to utilize his or her own data. The opposite image is a centralized AI, central AI or CAI, the very powerful central government or the very big gigantic companies dominate and all of the data and control. Later, Hashida-san explains the details of the personal AI and central AI in technological aspects and more social aspects. But I would like to point out that in first glance, we easily feel that our PAI, personal AI, is very good and friendly example of the AI, and the central AI, CAI, is the different another type of Frankenstein type of. But is it true? Is my questions. I'm not sure the personal AI will always behave as like Doraemon or Tetsuan Atom or friendly or not. But even the CAI, we can manage to behave the CAI as that type of the friendly agent and so on. So I think this is very complicated, and so it's not only the issues of the technology. So how do we utilize and treat technology? So we have a lot of the time, so we can. I think we can deepen our discussions. So now Hashida-san, it's your floors. Please explain what, how, and PAI can help our futures.
Okay. Thank you, Sakura-san, for a nice introduction. So can I have my first slide, the front page, please? Well, as he said, the centralized AI may be dangerous, and danger come from the fact that those AIs, centralized AI, are operated by somebody else, operated by somebody other than the service receiver, service recipient. So the central idea behind this personal AI is to let each person, each of us, to have our own AI, personal AI. That may be, doing much better for us. Okay, let's turn to the next page. So suppose you have your own personal AI exclusively dedicated to you. So your personal AI serves you, not anybody else, right? And also it exclusively, again, utilizes all your personal data. And nobody else does that. Only your personal AI utilizes all your personal data. Although there are others like GAFA, Google, Amazon, and other companies and governments may manage just a fragment of your personal data. For instance, Google may be managing your search query records and your Google Calendar data, your Google Docs data, and so on and so forth. But those pieces of data accounts for just a fraction of your life. And also, Amazon is managing your purchase data at Amazon, but that tells you just one fragment of your life either. So only your personal AI utilizes all your personal data, right? All right, so using that entire data of yourself, your personal AI helps you by intervening in your life, in your actions, more deeply and more carefully than any other technologies, in particular than centralized AI. Because centralized AI intervenes in your life from outside. They belong to somebody else, so they stand outside of you. They try to intervene in your life from outside. But your personal AI belongs exclusively to you, so it's part of yourself, right? So it helps you from inside or side by side with you. And it may or it could provide the best kind of services, the best kind of values to you because you go up to the previous slide. Stay, okay. So the personal AI would do the best services to you because it utilizes all your data. So it knows everything about you. But for the same reason, the very same reason, it may damage very badly your life. It may control your behavior, it may control your action, it may devastate your life by fully using your data. So there is such a very, a severe risk, and you must prepare some very nice, proper system of governance of personal AI in order to avoid such calamity, in order to control personal AI, to raise its value and contain its danger. Right? Would you go to the next slide, please? So, sorry, this is a rather complicated picture. And first, let us remember this danger of personal AI. Now, I will address that issue later, but now let's consider its possible value it may create. So if you look at this picture in the bottom, you see these services from S1 to SN. So there are many service providers, B2C service providers, and they have used the centralized AI they have developed. So CAI1 belongs to servicer S1, and the CAIN belongs to servicer SN. So these services have used this centralized AI to externally intervene in the life of their customers. Okay, now further, suppose that those services use this personal AI belonging to this individual as their digital customer contact points. So in that case, this PAI of this individual would incorporate the functionalities of CAI1 through CAI-N, because PAI now is the customer contact point of S1 through Sn. So they provide those functionalities of CAI to the PAI. And also, for the same reason, the PAI would be able to utilize all the personal data accessible to S1 through Sn, because again, PAI is the digital customer contact point of the services from S1 to Sn. So PAI has more functionalities, far richer functionalities than CAI1 and CAI-N. Also, PAI can utilize much more personal data than S1 or Sn. Okay, then let's move on to the next slide. So this is another diagram for estimating the value of PAI. Okay, if you look at the top row of this table, there are functionalities of CAI1 to CAI-N, those centralized AI belonging to S1 through Sn. And your PAI, this individual's PAI, its functionalities include the functionalities of CAI1 through CAI-N, plus some other AI possibly. So PAI's functionality is very rich. And also, if you look at the left column of this table, the personal data available to PAI includes PD1 through PDN. PD1 is a personal data available to S1, and PDN is personal data accessible to Sn. So PAI can access all these pieces of personal data, plus some other personal data may be generated from some sensors of this individual. Okay, now if you look at this if you look at this large orange bordered box, there are many services in it. Each cell in this orange box is some kind of service, right? And the service provided by servicer S1 is based upon the combination of PD1 and CAI1, and this service just occupies this tiny cell in the top left corner of this orange box. Okay, similarly, Sn service, the service by servicer Sn, is based upon the combination of PDN and CAI-N. Okay, so all the services from S1 to Sn provide services from these blue-gray cells. So there are N services in this orange box, but the entire set of services provided by the PAI is very, very huge. So there are more than N square different services provided by the PAI compared with just N services provided by S1 through Sn. So the value provided by PAI is huge, very huge, much larger than the value provided by S1 through Sn, because these cells, the yellow cells, they each represent some service. So these cells, these services are not provided by S1 through Sn, but only provided by PAI. And if you look at some of these yellow services, and if you look at this service by CAI1 plus PDN, this is service provided by combination of centralized AI belonging to S1 plus personal data available to Sn. So this combination can create new service to the individual user. And the profit from this service could be shared between S1 and Sn because they have contributed to the value creation by this service. So Sn has contributed CAI1 and S1, sorry, S1 has contributed CAI1 and Sn has contributed PDN. So they deserve their share of this profit, similarly to the service provided by the combination of CAIN and CPD1. So by participating in this ecosystem, centering around PAI, all the services from SN through SN, S1 through SN benefit from the system, from the ecosystem. So they are tempted to join this ecosystem. All right, and the last slide is the most maybe complicated one. So the circle is, turning. All right, our original problem appears in the top of this diagram. Global collaboration to restrict CAI is impossible because there are winners in the race of development and deployment of CAIs. So huge firms like GAFA or some totalitarian countries may use CAI to gain huge profit or huge political power and so on. So they can be winner. And it's impossible for all the humanities to collaborate to contain or restrict CAIs. So that's the problem. And our solution is not to restrict CAI, but let the service market shift from CAI to PAI because PAI is more profitable, right? So PAI creates much greater value than CAI. Therefore, more services like those S1 and SN in the previous page use PAIs, personal AIs, instead of CAIs as digital customer contact points, right? And if that happens, that means a spread of decentralized personal data control management, which means for some people, their customers to these services, they manage by using their personal AI. They manage their own personal data. They manage all their personal data. That's a decentralized personal data control. And that means those people can freely, by their own will, provide those services to anybody else. Therefore, if you look at the bottom left box, governments, universities, research institutes, NPOs, and so on and so forth, those organizations could collect many people's personal data based upon their consent. Very nice, aggregated personal data. And those organizations can, analyze the data they collected in order to watch, monitor PAI's behavior, check if PAIs are, behaving well. And also they could check each other's behavior, monitor each other in order to raise their social trust. So this is a, emerging governance of personal AI and many other things. In particular, personal AI can be governed in some bottom-up way like this. So if that holds, then this governance hopefully would create some very nice value co-creation in the society in a proper balance, proper profit balance between or among individuals, so they benefit from PAI, and also businesses, service businesses would have more profit, and also local and global society because, that's a three-way benefit of this whole personal data ecosystem. And if that is possible, then it would raise the social acceptability of the ecosystem, personal AI ecosystem, which would allow or which would promote more services to use PAIs as digital customer contact points. So that means, would you go back to the slide? This blue circle turns in a sustainable way to raise the percentage of deployment of personal AI and raise the ratio of decentralized PD management and raise the effectiveness of governance or decentralized governance of personal AI to establish a better value co-creation in a proper balance between the three entities. Okay, so this would mean that the services, both public and private, would shift from CAI to PAI in the world. Of course, totalitarian governments, like some neighboring ones, would insist on using centralized AI. Other countries and many services, private services, would shift from CAI to PAI, which would prevent the surveillance, capitalism surveillance regime or totalitarian government system from spreading anymore. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Hashida-san. Well, it's quite a little bit too complicated to follow, especially for the last part. But it is my impression that the CAI and the PAI is not the, dichotomy or excluded each other. So you emphasize the ecosystem of the information. So both the PAI and the CAI is the components of to make these ecosystems. Is it right?
Yeah. Because we need CAIs anyway, because PAIs do benefits to individuals basically, but you need some centralized management of personal data for the sake of taxation, for instance, and also, containing pandemic or social welfare and so on and so forth. So in order to provide these public services, you need some kind of centralized AI. So you need both.
And at the last slide, you mentioned only the governance, the nations and the private companies. And so, what is the difference in the role of such ecosystems in the public governance and private companies? It's just my impression that in the futures there would be lesson on the lesson is the difference between the private sectors and public sectors.
Yeah, some of the private sectors may be exercising centralized control of personal data, as I said before, for the sake of taxation and so on and so forth. That's some kind of public services. So you need a centralized control of centralized AI for that purposes. But for other purposes, for serving to each individual for the sake of themselves. For that purposes, PAI is more appropriate than CAI. So public sectors would use both CAI and PAI, but private sectors, private services would mostly use PAI because that's safer and more profitable and easier acceptable to the society.
I see. I'm not sure your forecast is right or not.
Too optimistic.
I don't know. Well, such research paradigms are your original ideas. But what about the situation in the outside of Japan, or in America or Europe? Are there any other researchers to develop such systems ideas?
Yeah, for instance, the European Union has a plan to spread what they call digital ID wallet, which allows each individual to control their personal data. In particular, their verifiable data of their properties, attributes.
I see.
So that is on the way to personalized AI, away from central AI.
I see. Okay. And now we are pleased to have the video messages from the Dr. An Kabukian, who is the experts of such issues, privacies and technologies, and so we can enjoy her videos. And after that videos, we will continue the discussions.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so glad to be speaking to you today about privacy by design. I always want to start by dispelling the myths about privacy because there are so many myths. The major myth is that privacy equals secrecy. Privacy is not about having something to hide. Privacy is all about control. It's about personal control relating to the uses of your personal information. I talk about what's important. User control is critical because you have to be able to exercise freedom of choice. The Germans have a wonderful term for this called informational self-determination, that it has to be the individual who determines the fate of his or her personal information. And the reason for this is context is key. Only you, the data subject, the individual, knows the context associated with the data. So you're the only one who knows if it's sensitive or not. You have to be able to decide. I talk about how vital privacy is to freedom. It forms the foundation of our freedom. It is a necessary condition for societal prosperity and well-being. All the things we value, like creativity, innovation, all of this, which results in prosperity in society, requires freedom. And privacy is the essence of that freedom. Without privacy, individual human rights, property rights, civil liberties, these would be gone. They wouldn't exist in any meaningful manner. Surveillance is the exact opposite, is the antithesis of privacy. It makes you go inward. It usurps your cognitive bandwidth. So you're always looking over your shoulder. You're wondering who's listening. It's the opposite of blue sky thinking, where you're thinking crazy ideas, and brilliant innovation comes from that. That's why we have to preserve privacy at all costs. When I was privacy commissioner in Canada for 3 terms, 17 years, at the beginning, I started by creating privacy by design. Because you see, I'm a psychologist, I'm not a lawyer. And when I joined the Privacy Commission, all the brilliant lawyers wanted to apply the law after the privacy harms had arisen. I wanted a model of prevention. I wanted to prevent the privacy harms from arising. So privacy by design, I created literally at my kitchen table over 3 nights. It's all about being proactive and having a model of prevention, preventing the privacy harms from arising. You'll see that this took off, and in 2010, it was unanimously passed as an international standard. In the privacy commissioners world, there's a privacy conference once a year for privacy commissioners and data protection authorities. It's usually in Europe. In 2010, it was in Jerusalem. And at the end of a 3 or 4 day closed conference, we have a half-day closed session just for commissioners, where we are allowed to introduce resolutions for everyone to vote on. And that year, I introduced the idea of privacy by design as an international standard. And to my surprise, it was unanimously passed. And I say surprise because most commissioners are brilliant lawyers who love applying the law to a situation. This was very different. It's all about being before any harms had arisen, preventing the harms from arising. And afterwards, I went around to all the commissioners and I thanked them. But I expressed my surprise that it was unanimously passed. And their answer was, they said, Anne, in this day and age, we as privacy commissioners are only reaching the tip of the iceberg. The majority of the harms, the data breaches, are remaining unregulated, unchallenged, unknown. That's why we need something else. Regulatory compliance is no longer enough by itself. It is no longer sustainable as the sole model for ensuring the future of privacy. And we've had great success with, you'll see it's been translated into over 40 languages. We've had such luck. Let me tell you the 2 essentials to privacy by design. I've talked about the first one. You have to prevent the harms from arising. You have to be proactive, but you also have to banish zero-sum models. Zero-sum means you can only have a positive gain in one area, privacy, versus another area, security. Win, lose, either or. And it's never privacy that wins over the other interests, nor am I saying it should be, but I sure as heck wasn't going to have it lose out all the time. I said, look, we have to get rid of this win-lose model of either or zero-sum models. It's so yesterday. I said, we have to substitute what's called positive sum, which gives you two positive gains at the same time. It creates a win-win scenario, not an either or involving unnecessary trade-offs and false dichotomies. And it's as simple and as difficult as replacing verses with and. This is the 7 foundational principles of privacy by design. And I'm not going to have time to review them all. If you have questions, please send them to me. Let me just tell you about number 2. I've already talked about 1, privacy as the default setting. This is critical. What it says to customers and citizens is you don't have to ask for privacy. We give it to you automatically. It's the default setting. It's embedded into all of our operations. We can't forget about it. It's baked into the code. It's a huge win. You might say, well, maybe this is interesting, but you can't, it's too hard to do in real life, right? Wrong. This is a paper. Please go and take a look at it at this website. It consists of 22 papers written with all of the major tech companies. Think of any major tech company: Microsoft, Intel, HPE, Oracle, IBM, of course, and many others. We wrote 22 papers on all of these areas: biometrics, smart meters, NFCs, remote home healthcare, privacy protective surveillance. We wrote all about surveillance cameras and mass transit because we wanted to show you this is very, very doable. I had the great fortune of hearing from JIPTEC, the Japanese Information Processing Development Center, in the last days of my 3rd term as Privacy Commissioner. And they wrote to me, and I loved it. They said, privacy by design is considered one of the most important concepts by members of the Japanese Information Processing Development Center. They said, we've heard from Japan's private sector companies that we need to insist on the principle of positive sum, not zero sum, and become enlightened with privacy by design. And I thought, if the Japanese can understand positive sum versus zero sum, and English is not your primary language, then surely the rest of us can figure this out and grasp its importance. Now you might say, okay, but what's it going to cost me? Of course it's going to cost you something, but it will be a tiny cost if you're proactive. It will be a fraction of the cost you will incur if you don't do it proactively. Because these days when there are privacy breaches, they're not lawsuits, they're class action lawsuits that are filed against the breach. But the damage to your brand, the damage to your reputation may be irreparable. The loss of consumer confidence and trust is so great that it's not worth it. Get smart, get proactive, do privacy by design. I want to reference the General Data Protection Regulation, which came into effect in 2018 in the European Union. It strengthens privacy data protection and it gives citizens far greater control over their own personal information. But what excited me was that they included my privacy by design framework and privacy as the default, the 2nd of the 7 foundational principles. They included all of this. I was delighted, of course. And as a result of this, I mean, privacy has taken off. Privacy by design all over the world. You wouldn't believe how strong it is now. There isn't a week that goes by when I don't hear from some country, some jurisdiction as to what they're doing with privacy by design. What we're also offering now is privacy by design certification, because companies come to me and they say, we're doing privacy by design. We'd like you to certify that we're doing it properly. So with their consent, I contact KPMG, who I work with, and they go in and they examine what the company is doing. And if the company is doing privacy by design properly in the 7 foundational principles, then I issue them a certification. And they've told me that they love this because it gives them such trust from their customers that has been lacking. You know, there's such a trust deficit now. Privacy by design rebuilds trusted business relationships like no other. It's very, very successful. I just want to tell you, this is a course I offer online at Ryerson University here in Canada, but you can take it online anywhere. So if you have any interest in taking a course on privacy by design that I offer, take a look at the website and please sign up. We have people from all over the world who have signed up for this.
Anka Vuki, and thank you, very energetic speech. And I think that her privacy by design and your personal AI shared several elements or characters, for example, the supporting the privacy by systems and the some non-zero-sum thoughts. And so what do you think about that?
Yeah, I hope my idea would be another kind of implementation of privacy by design, different from the one she raised in her presentation, that is to protect privacy for the sake of avoiding damages. But my PAI, personal AI, would directly combine the privacy protection and the benefit and profit of the business services. So I wish we could discuss in real time, but unfortunately she cannot make it this time, but maybe in some days in future.
And she also emphasizes that the internationalization is very important. But in my background, I am interested in some local cultural differences to the reaction to the modern technologies. So I think that the internationalization, of course, important, but to taking care of the each local cultural systems are also important. So these are very subtle, difficult issues.
Yeah, and well. Plus some incentives for the business players to participate in this privacy by design concept or personal AI ecosystem. And this must accompany some benefit for the companies to join this idea, not just the privacy by design or PAI.
So the private company sector is also the very important, has a role. Okay, I see. Well, actually, we would like to invite the Professor Suzuki Takayuki, who will be summarize this session in the next, wrap-up sessions. And I hope he is hearing these sessions. And thank you, Suzuki-san. Thank you very much for joining us. So I believe you have heard both the Hashida-san's and the Anka-Bukian's presentations. So could you give us some comments or questions?
For letting me join this session, and I have both a positive impression and a bit negative or skeptical impression. And the positive impression is that both ideas are really interesting and exciting. We tend to think technologies and our values sometimes conflict, and in this case, utilizing big data and protecting our privacy seem incompatible, and we have to make a choice. But both talks propose the solutions, basically technology-based solutions, to make both compatible. And this is a really interesting idea. And I think we should be more ambitious here and pursue both goals at the same time. In this case, privacy and utilizing the data, we can pursue both. And also, I have a little bit of skeptical impression too. And simply put, the ideas sound too good to be true. And I'm not sure this kind of win-win situation can be attainable easily. Especially, basically, protecting personal privacy might compromise the profit of companies. So it might not be, so they might not be happy about that restriction. So I think maybe we should take a closer look at these ideas and if to see whether they really attainable win-win situation is really possible. That's my impression.
So both ideas, the idea of Ankavukian and the idea of myself, they might look too optimistic and too good to be true, as he said. But if you look at the situation globally, the world is, basically getting better. More rational ideas have been implemented more widely, and people with the tendency for free thought, free speech, and more freer choice. The ratio is increasing even in the areas like Middle East and Asia. So. And also the pollution is being contained and so on and so forth. The entire society is getting better, which means, good things are coming true if we make enough effort. That's necessary. So, of course, my idea and Kabukian's idea look quite optimistic, but also it's true that seemingly too good ideas having been implemented so far. So we must make our best effort to realize these ideas, these optimistic ideas.
How about Suzuki-san? You are not satisfied, I believe.
No. I believe that these two ideas are worth pursuing. So I think the important point is that we have to work harder to show that these ideas actually we can make a win-win situation about this problem. We now think that there is a zero-sum situation, and if we protect privacy, personal privacy, we might compromise the profit of the large companies. But we must show that that is not the case, and individuals and large companies both are profited by this new framework. We have to show that, and we have to change our understanding about the situation, So I want to expect Professor Hashida to work harder and work further to implement this vision.
Yeah, and of course I like you to join this
I'm happy to join.
endeavor, and also everybody else. But I'm quite optimistic, and researchers are basically optimistic, including you and Sakura-san as well. I hope.
Oh, well, I would like to ask both of the Hashida-san and Suzuki-san. What do you think is the most difficult obstacles to realize your such paradise images? So what is it's not the technology. It's not only technological issues. Maybe the legal or some customs or something like that. So what we should renew to such.
Yeah, the most important thing is to raise the level of trust of each other. So companies must trust individuals, individuals must trust companies, and we must trust our governments and so on. And if everybody trusts everybody else, then any rational thing is realizable.
I see. Suzuki-san, how about that? What do you think about these most difficult issues?
I think imagination is also important because we don't believe this kind of scenario is actually possible, but maybe it's because we don't have enough imagination to envision this kind of scenario vividly, and Hashida-san can imagine the situation more vividly, and Hashida-san can believe this is possible. So we have to to widen our imagination, and we should share the vision with Hashira-san, and we should join this vision.
Okay, thank you very much. So now our time is running up. So to wrap up, I was really impressed that the important is what we want to realize in the futures. So that is Suzuki-san says imaginations and Hashira-san's reliabilities. But so important thing is our hope and the efforts. So the maybe future is in our hand, not in the AI or technologies. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us. That is the wrap up of this session. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, sincere thanks to all of our speakers for another round of great discussions. After a short break, we will move on to the final session of this year's Tokyo Forum. We'll be back in a few moments, so please stay with us.